The rain hammered the glass walls of the CIA's seventh-floor briefing room in Langley, turning the windows into a blur of silver streaks. Inside, the air was thick, not with humidity, but with tension. Director Miles Harrington stood over a circular table, his steel-gray eyes fixed on a dossier stamped in bold red, Ibrahim Traoré, Threat Assessment. Around him sat analysts, operatives, and regional specialists, each holding their breath as if they knew a storm far bigger than the one outside was about to break. "Let's get one thing clear," Harrington said, his voice low and icy. "Burkina Faso's president is becoming a problem. Our resources, our contractors, even our influence, he's blocking all of it." He tapped the dossier twice, as if trying to break it open. "And he knows exactly what he's doing." A young analyst, pale under the fluorescent lights, cleared his throat. "Sir." Traoré shut down the last French base, seized control of the gold mines, and refused our development proposals. His popularity is exploding across Africa. Every speech he makes goes viral in minutes. Harrington smirked. "Viral speeches don't concern me. What concerns me is control. And he's dismantling decades of it." The room fell silent. Then came the line that changed everything. "We know his weakness," Harrington said calmly. "Everyone has one." On the screen behind him appeared photos, family members, military allies, cabinet ministers, satellite images of the presidential compound, intercepted communications, economic reports. The CIA had mapped every inch of Traoré's life. But none of them predicted what happened next. Because thousands of miles away, in Ouagadougou, Ibrahim Traoré sat in his office reading an encrypted intelligence brief from a friendly nation. A single sentence stood out like a knife in the dark. "Langley believes they know your weakness." Traoré leaned back in his chair, letting the words echo in his mind. The hum of the ceiling fan, the distant chatter of guards in the hallway, the soft thud of the rain outside, they all disappeared beneath the weight of that one message. Finally, he smiled. A calm, fearless, almost amused smile. "If they think they know my weakness," he said quietly, "then they already know how this ends." He stood up, straightened his uniform, and walked toward the window overlooking the capital. The storm clouds above Burkina Faso were dark and heavy, but Traoré had weathered storms far worse. And somewhere deep inside, a fire burned brighter than the lightning crawling across the sky. "They want to test me," he said softly. "Good. Let them try." His eyes narrowed. "Because when you know my weakness." He paused, letting the words form like thunder. "You also know you're going to lose." The next 72 hours would shake intelligence circles across 3 continents. But the first move belonged to him. The next morning, the sun rose over Ouagadougou like a blade of fire cutting through the night's shadows. In the presidential compound, the atmosphere was calm on the surface, guards in crisp uniforms, aides carrying folders, ministers preparing for briefings. But beneath that calm ran an electric current, invisible yet undeniable. Everyone sensed something was moving in the dark, something far beyond Burkina Faso's borders. Inside the Situation Room, Traoré stood before a digital map showing Western Africa. Defense Minister Tambura, Intelligence Chief Yakuba, and 2 senior military strategists were gathered around him. The air smelled faintly of coffee and metal, a scent of early mornings and looming threats. "We intercepted chatter from Langley last night," Yakuba said, placing a tablet on the table. "Multiple references to psychological pressure, destabilization options, and influence operations." Tambura leaned forward. "They're framing it as a soft containment strategy. But we've seen this movie before. It always starts soft." Traoré didn't respond immediately. His arms were folded, his face expressionless, as if he were studying more than the words, studying intention, history, and power all at once. "Show me the rest," he said. Yakuba tapped the screen. Audio fragments filled the room, voice distortions, static lines, coded phrases. Target's growing influence is destabilizing regional balance. Identify leverage points. Weakness must be exploited before he consolidates. Initiate Phase 1. Tambura slammed a fist onto the table. They think they can intimidate us like we're still under colonial command. Traoré remained still, calm, almost unnervingly so. Director, he finally said, addressing Yakuba. What do they think my weakness is? Yakuba hesitated. They haven't identified it yet. But they believe you have one hidden, something personal, something strategic. Traoré chuckled quietly, a sound that surprised even his closest advisors. My weakness, he repeated, tasting the words like something bitter he had long since learned to swallow. They look for it in the wrong places: family, fear, ambition. But they don't understand something fundamental. He turned to them, eyes sharp as forged steel. A man who has nothing to hide is a man who cannot be controlled. His words hit the room like a shockwave. Tambura nodded slowly. So what is our move, Mr. President? Traoré stepped closer to the map, pointing to a series of red-marked locations: American intelligence nodes, French listening posts, foreign-operated mining concessions. We don't wait for their strike, he said. We show them the cost of underestimating Africa's new reality. He pressed a button on the table, illuminating a second layer on the map: Burkina Faso's new regional partnerships, Mali, Niger, Guinea. A growing alliance of young leaders who were rejecting the old world order. The CIA thinks I'm alone, Traoré continued. But they are blind to the world rising around them. Suddenly, the doors opened and an aide entered, visibly shaken. Mr. President, satellite scans picked up a drone entering our airspace. No transponder. No identification. The room stiffened. Where? Traoré asked. Over Sector Delta, near the gold fields you nationalized last month. A silence spread. Heavy. Ominous. Traoré's expression hardened, not in fear, but in certainty. So it begins, he said softly. He adjusted his jacket and headed for the command center. We meet force with truth. We meet pressure with unity. And we meet threats with answers. He paused at the door. And if this is their first move? His voice dropped to a quiet, unwavering growl. Then they are about to see mine. What Traoré planned next would ignite Washington, Paris, and London like a geopolitical earthquake. And it would begin with a message the CIA never expected. The command center beneath the presidential palace buzzed with restrained urgency. Screens lit the dim room in shifting blues and reds, casting sharp shadows across the faces of officers and analysts. As Traoré stepped inside, conversations halted. Every pair of eyes turned toward him. Not out of fear, but out of something far stronger: trust. Show me the drone, he ordered. Colonel Sawadogo brought up the live feed. A sleek, angular silhouette glided silently across Burkina Faso's night sky. No markings. No transponder. A ghost in the air. Not commercial, Sawadogo muttered. Military grade. Likely American or European. And its flight path? Traoré asked. Directly toward the mine corridor. The same mines we reclaimed from foreign companies. A thin smile crossed Traoré's face, dangerous, knowing. Of course, he murmured. They want to remind us who used to own the sky. Tambura leaned toward him. We can take it down, sir. One command. Our new air defense grid is ready. But Traoré shook his head. No. If we shoot it down, they'll claim provocation. That's what they want. He pointed at the drone feed. Instead, we let them watch. Let them see what we want them to see. He turned to Yakuba. Prepare the broadcast room. The intelligence chief blinked. You're going to speak now? Yes, Traoré said calmly. If the CIA believes they know my weakness, let's give them a message, directly, unmistakably. Minutes later, cameras were set. Lights hummed. Advisors whispered behind him. Outside, the drone continued circling, silent, patient, intrusive. Traoré stepped into frame. No teleprompter, no rehearsed lines. Just truth sharpened into a blade. To those watching us from the sky tonight, he began, his voice deep and steady, I know who you are. And I know why you're here. In Langley, several analysts froze as his live broadcast flashed across their monitors. You believe you can intimidate us. You believe Africa is still a chessboard. You believe I have a weakness you can exploit. His eyes hardened. But you misunderstand something fundamental. I do not fear your surveillance. I do not fear your secrets. And I do not fear your pressure. He leaned slightly closer to the camera. My only weakness, he said slowly, is the people I refuse to betray. And because of that, you will lose. Washington went silent. The drone, still circling, captured every word. Traoré ended with a single sentence, one that would ricochet across intelligence agencies like a gunshot. You want a war of shadows? Then understand this, I do not hide in the dark. I walk in it. He cut the transmission. Behind him, even his own general stared, half inspired, half stunned. So, he said, turning back to them, let's see how the CIA responds. Outside, the drone abruptly changed direction, heading north, accelerating fast. A retreat. Or a signal. Either way, this was only the beginning. The moment the drone veered north, Traoré knew the game had shifted. Not ended, shifted. In the command center, officers tracked its retreating signal until it vanished beyond radar range. Tambura stepped beside him, whispering, "Sir, they didn't expect you to speak directly to them." "No," Traoré replied quietly. "And they still haven't shown their real hand." Before he could say more, an encrypted alert flashed red across the main screen. Yakuba rushed forward, tapping in codes. "Mr. President, we just intercepted a second signal. This one isn't a drone. It's a transmission." "From where?" Traoré asked. Yakuba swallowed. "Virginia. Langley headquarters." The room fell absolutely silent. "Put it through," Traoré ordered. Speakers crackled with faint interference before a calm, controlled American voice filled the room. "President Traoré, impressive speech. But you misunderstand us." Several officers stiffened. Tambura reached instinctively toward his holster, a reflex born from years of threats in many forms. The voice continued. "Your weakness isn't your fear. It's your belief that you don't have one. We're patient. We're watching. And sooner or later, you will make a mistake." Yakuba cursed under his breath. "They're provoking you. They want you off balance." But Traoré didn't flinch. He stepped toward the speaker, his posture relaxed, almost conversational. "You claim you know my weakness," he said, voice steady. "But you reveal your own every time you speak." There was a pause on the line. Traoré continued. "Your weakness is arrogance. You assume Africa is predictable. You assume we fear you. You assume you understand the new world rising." He tilted his head slightly. "But you don't." The line went dead. No farewell. No threat. No response. Just silence. Tambura exhaled slowly. "Mr. President, that was Harrington himself. The CIA director." Traoré nodded. "Good. That means we have his attention." He turned toward the large operations map, where regional partners blinked in blue: Mali, Niger, Guinea. "Prepare a secure summit," he said. "If the CIA wants to test us, they will find out what unity looks like." He paused, then added, "And this time, we make the next move." By dawn, the presidential convoy was already slicing through the quiet streets of Ouagadougou toward the underground crisis facility. The city was waking slowly, market stalls opening, motorcycles humming, morning prayers drifting through the air. But inside the armored vehicles, no one spoke. They all understood the gravity of what was coming. In the secured conference chamber, encrypted screens flickered to life as three regional leaders connected in: Mali's Assimi Goïta, Niger's Abdourahmane Tiani, and Guinea's Mamadi Doumbouya. All of them young, all of them unapologetic about breaking Western influence. Tambura whispered, "This is the first time all four of you meet in a single closed session." Traoré stepped forward. "Good. The world pushed us separately for decades. Now they will face us together." The screen stabilized, showing each leader seated in their respective war rooms. "Brother Ibrahim," Goïta said first, "we saw your message. The CIA tried to intimidate you? They think they know how to pressure us, Traoré replied. But they don't understand the foundation we're building. Tchiani leaned in, scowling. Niger intercepted unusual signals last night along our northern border. Drones. Possibly American. Doumbouya nodded. Guinea detected increased Western chatter too. They're nervous. Afraid of losing their last strongholds. Traoré clasped his hands behind his back. Then we use their fear against them. He pressed a button and a strategic map appeared, one showing newly established resource corridors, shared military training zones, and synchronized defense grids between their nations. This is our strength, he said. Not weapons. Not speeches. Unity. Something the West never expected Africans to achieve. Goita's voice deepened. So what's your next move? Traoré looked at each of them, calm but resolute. We expose what they're doing. Publicly. Transparently. They hide in shadows, so we pull them into the light. Tchiani raised an eyebrow. Meaning? A joint address, Traoré said. All four of us. One message: Africa will no longer bow to covert threats or foreign manipulation. Doumbouya grinned. You want to scare them? No, Traoré replied. I want to remind them that the days of controlling Africa through secrecy are over. The leaders exchanged determined looks. Goita concluded, very well. Ibrahim, lead the way. Traoré nodded once. Then let's show the CIA the one thing they can't measure. He paused, voice sharpening like a blade. A continent waking up. Across the Atlantic, inside Langley's Situation Suite, Director Harrington stared at a wall of screens showing satellite feeds, African news channels, and intercepted communications. His jaw tightened as one of the analysts zoomed in on an encrypted data burst from Ouagadougou. Sir, we decrypted part of the transmission, she said nervously. It looks like a regional summit. Traoré, Goita, Tchiani, Doumbouya. All in one coordinated channel. Harrington's expression darkened. That's impossible. Those four weren't supposed to unify. A senior operative cleared his throat. Sir, with respect, your message to Traoré last night might have pushed them closer. Harrington snapped, I don't push them together. They push themselves together. That's the problem. He paced toward the central screen, where Traoré's still image sat frozen, calm, unshaken, challenging. He wants a confrontation, Harrington muttered. He wants to make this ideological. Another analyst spoke up. We detected preparations for a broadcast. Large scale. Multi-country relay points. If they announce an alliance. They won't, Harrington cut in. We won't allow it. He turned sharply toward his operations team. Initiate Phase 2. Destabilization protocols. Immediately. The room stiffened. Sir, one agent said carefully, Phase 2 authorizes economic interference, cyber disruption, asset pressure. And? Harrington barked. It also risks exposure, the agent finished quietly. Harrington's voice became cold and surgical. Exposure only matters if we fail. And we're not going to fail. But even as his operatives scrambled, alarms suddenly flared across the digital map. Director, an analyst shouted. We've just been locked out of 3 African networks, simultaneously. By who? Harrington demanded. The analyst swallowed. By them, sir. Traoré's coalition. They shut us out before we even attacked. Harrington froze. For the first time, he looked unsure. They anticipated us, he whispered. They're learning. Meanwhile in Ouagadougou, Traoré watched the same blackout unfold on a holographic map. The red CIA nodes flickered, died, and vanished. Tambura exhaled. Sir, they just realized you're not the one being hunted. Traoré nodded slowly. No, he said. They're the ones being outmaneuvered. He stepped toward the cameras being set up for the multi-nation broadcast. "Prepare the address," he said. "Tonight, we speak to the world." Night fell over Ouagadougou like a velvet curtain, but inside the presidential media hall, every light burned at full power. Technicians hurried between cameras, cables, and encrypted transmitters. Soldiers guarded each entrance with a seriousness that made even seasoned ministers swallow hard. Traoré stepped onto the stage, not for a rally, not for a domestic speech, but for something far more dangerous. Behind him, 3 large digital screens flickered on, each showing the live feeds from Mali, Niger, and Guinea. Goita, Tchiani, and Doumbouya waited, their faces lit by cold studio lights. Tambura approached quietly. "Sir, once you speak, there's no going back. Washington, Paris, Brussels, they'll see this as a direct challenge." Traoré adjusted the cuffs of his uniform calmly. "It's not a challenge," he said. "It's a correction." He stepped into position as the production chief raised his hand. "Going live in 5, 4, 3. But before 2 could be said, Yakuba burst through the doors, pale and breathless. "Mr. President, we have a breach." Traoré turned slowly. "Where?" "Our internal network. The CIA just attempted infiltration on the transmission line itself." Technicians froze. A single corrupted frame appeared on the broadcast preview, static mixed with the outline of a CIA watermark. "They're trying to hijack the stream," a technician whispered. Tambura reached for the emergency cutoff. "We can delay." "No," Traoré said sharply. His voice cut through the panic like a blade. "We go live. Now." "But sir." "If they want to listen," Traoré said, eyes narrowing, "then let them hear everything." The production chief swallowed hard. 2, 1. Live. Red lights activated. Cameras rolled. The entire continent, and the CIA, were watching. Traoré began. "Tonight, I speak not as one nation, but as 4. Today, Africa chooses its voice." His words echoed through the hall, through the alliance screens, and, unintentionally, through the CIA's own intercept room. In Langley, analysts froze as the broadcast hijacked every monitor. Harrington stormed toward the screen. "Shut it down." But nothing shut down. Traoré's voice only grew stronger. "For decades, you controlled our gold, our land, our governments. Through loans, threats, and shadows." He leaned closer to the camera, fire in his eyes. "But the shadows no longer frighten us. Because we have walked through them, and we did not break." The room in Langley fell silent. In Ouagadougou, the air vibrated with quiet electricity. "And now," Traoré said, "I reveal what the CIA does not want you to know." Every technician's breath caught. His next sentence would shake the world. Traoré let the silence stretch, 3 seconds, maybe 4. But to the intelligence agencies watching, it felt like an eternity sharpened into a blade. Every camera in the hall framed his face with perfect clarity. No fear. No hesitation. Only conviction. Then he spoke. "The CIA believes they know my weakness," he said slowly. "But what they don't want you to know, is that they are the ones who fear exposure." In Langley, Harrington froze. "Cut the feed, now." Analysts frantically typed, systems blinked red, encryption walls slammed shut. But nothing worked. The African Coalition's cyber network held firm. Traoré continued. "For months, they have conducted unauthorized drone flights over African skies. They have intercepted our private communications. They have funneled money to destabilize governments they do not control." He raised a document, classified, stamped, unmistakably Western. "And they do this while calling themselves partners. Gasps rippled across the broadcast rooms in Mali, Niger, and Guinea. Even his own ministers exchanged shocked glances. This level of evidence was more explosive than they expected. Traoré placed the document on his podium. But tonight, we end this game. He motioned to Yakuba in the control booth. A screen behind him lit up with coordinates, timestamps, and intercepted CIA directives. This, Traoré said, is the map of every covert operation they have attempted in West Africa during the past 8 weeks. Panic erupted in Langley. What the hell? How did he get that? An analyst shouted. Harrington didn't answer. His eyes were locked on the screen, jaw clenched so hard a vein pulsed at his temple. Traoré pressed on. They call us unstable. They call us inexperienced. They call us radical. But the truth is simple. He pointed at the camera. Their power depends entirely on our obedience. The hall trembled with applause from the other leaders' studios. Even the technicians, still shaken by the breach attempt, couldn't hide their awe. And for the first time, Traoré concluded. 4 nations stand together and say, no more. He stepped back slightly from the podium. The world held its breath. In Langley, Harrington finally snapped. Activate Phase 3, he growled. I want leverage on him, friends, enemies, family. Find it. Tonight. But at that same moment, another alert flashed across their control boards. Incoming data block, origin, Ouagadougou. Harrington's eyes widened. What is he sending? The message arrived in bold, translated automatically. You still think you know my weakness? Then you haven't understood anything at all. Traoré wasn't done. His next move would cut deeper than Washington ever expected in the broadcast hall. The cameras kept rolling, but Traoré paused, just long enough for the tension to coil like a drawn bow. Behind him, the live feed from Mali, Niger, and Guinea showed each leader leaning in, waiting. Across Africa, millions watched in stunned silence. In Langley, the CIA watched in something closer to panic. Traoré slowly placed both hands on the podium. You searched for my weakness, he said, his voice quieter now but infinitely sharper. You dug into my past, my allies, my government. You sent drones. You planted agents. You intercepted calls. He looked directly into the lens. And yet, you never found what you were looking for. Then he delivered the line that would be replayed around the world for years. Because a man who is willing to lose everything, cannot be controlled. In Langley, Harrington's fist slammed onto the desk. He's turning this into ideology. Shut him down. But it was too late. Traoré gestured toward the technicians. Yakuba pressed a button, and a new screen appeared behind him, this time showing something unexpected, the people. Crowds in Bamako, Niamey, Conakry, and Ouagadougou were gathering spontaneously in the streets, holding flags, chanting his name, filming the broadcast on their phones. This, Traoré said, pointing to the images, is my so-called weakness. He stepped away from the podium so the cameras could zoom in on the screens. Not gold. Not power. Not position. My weakness is the millions who refuse to kneel anymore. A wave of cheers erupted from every Allied leader's studio. Even through the encrypted lines, the energy was unmistakable. Traoré turned back to the camera. You threatened me. You monitored me. You tried to intimidate me. But tonight, you'll learn the truth. He leaned in, just slightly. A leader backed by his people has no weakness you can use. Washington went cold. Harrington stood frozen, eyes narrowing as understanding, and something like fear, settled into his expression. Traoré continued. You want to break me? Then you must break them. All of them. Every mother who farms. Every soldier who stands guard. Every student who dreams of an Africa that chooses its own destiny. His voice deepened. And that, you cannot do. The broadcast hall erupted with applause from all 4 countries. But Traoré raised his hand, silencing everyone. For too long, the world treated Africa as a battlefield. He took a calm breath. Tonight, we show them it is becoming a force. He paused. And now, I will show the CIA something they never calculated. Every minister in the room leaned forward. This, Traoré said, is the move they never expected from me. The screens behind him flickered, loading something large, classified, and explosive. What he was about to reveal would send shockwaves through every Western intelligence agency. The screens behind Traoré finished loading, their glow illuminating the hall like a rising storm. Ministers leaned in. Technicians held their breath. Across Africa, millions stood fixed to their televisions. In Langley, Harrington braced himself, jaw tight, eyes narrowed. Then the image finally appeared. Not documents. Not coordinates. Not drones. A map. A bright, pulsing map of West Africa, overlaid with a new borderless zone, highlighted in brilliant gold. Traoré stepped aside so the world could see it clearly. This, he said, is the Sahel Sovereignty Pact. Goita, Tkiani, and Doumbouya appeared alongside him on their screens. For months, we have built this quietly, Traoré continued. Not in shadows like our enemies, but in unity, with our people, our soldiers, our land. He raised one hand over the map. No foreign bases. No foreign control of gold or uranium. No foreign intelligence operations. No puppet governments. No permission needed. The room erupted in applause from all 3 neighboring capitals. But Traoré wasn't done. The CIA believed they could intimidate one leader, he said. They believed power was held by individuals. His voice deepened. But true power is held by nations rising together. On the map, the gold zone expanded, symbolic, yes, but electrifying. A corridor of cooperation, defense, and economic independence stretching across the heart of Africa. In Langley, analysts stared in disbelief. Harrington muttered, "He's forming a bloc against us." Traoré continued, "From this day forward, every attempt to undermine one of us will be met by all of us." He paused, letting the message ripple across continents. "You asked for my weakness," he said, looking straight into the lens. "So here is my answer." His tone sharpened into steel. "My weakness is now a coalition. And your weakness is believing you could stop it." Cheers exploded across Bamako, Niamey, Conakry, and Ouagadougou. Streets flooded with people waving flags, shouting in unity, singing slogans of sovereignty. Inside the CIA command room, Harrington stood motionless. For the first time, he understood. The era of quiet control was gone. The era of open confrontation had begun. Traoré delivered the final line, calm, certain, unforgettable. "We are not afraid of your shadows anymore. Because we have become the light." He stepped back. The broadcast ended. Silence followed, brief, trembling, powerful. Then Africa roared. And the world felt the shift.